Welcome to Fundraising Confessions, the truth behind the profession. The podcast produced by Jerry Consulting Group, where nonprofit leaders, fundraisers, and donors spill the tea on what really goes down behind the scenes of the fundraising world. Today, we're honored to welcome a giant in the nonprofit sector, Art Taylor. As president and CEO of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, you'll hear it referred to as AFP. Art had spent the last 2 decades as president and CEO of the BBB Wise Giving Alliance at give.org. Mr. Taylor has redefined what it means to lead with transparency, trust, and innovation. Since 2001, he's overseen the transformation of charity accountability standards, expanded the alliance's reach from 250 to over 1,400 national charity evaluations, and introduced the Accredited Charity Seal, a trusted symbol now seen over 1 billion times across the nonprofit landscape. Beyond his role at the BBB Wise Giving Alliance, Mr. Taylor is an educator, thought leader, and visionary innovator. He's launched cutting edge platforms like Give Safely and AskGive.org, hosts the Heart of Giving podcast, and has been recognized multiple times on the Nonprofit Times Power and Influence Top 50, earning a rightful place in their Hall of Fame. Whether teaching at Columbia or the Lilly School of Philanthropy, chairing national boards, or driving policy with the Generosity Commission, Mr. Taylor is shaping the future of giving with integrity, insight, and fearless foresight. Early in his career, Mr. Taylor was employed by Keystone Foods Corporation, UGI Corporation, and Deloitte and Touche, where he obtained the status Certified Public Accountant. He is a graduate of Franklin and Marshall College, BA Business Administration, and received an honorary Doctor of Laws from his alma mater. He earned a JD from Temple University James E. Beasley School of Law and was admitted to the Pennsylvania Bar. He received a Foresight Practitioner Certificate from the Institute for the Future. He has completed studies for the University of Oxford, said Business School Certificate in Blockchain Strategy Program, and he is a graduate of South Philadelphia High School and a member of its Cultural Hall of Fame. Let's get into it. Hello. Today, we are getting industry level ready. I'm joined by the president and CEO of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, H. Art Taylor, representing over 27,000 fundraisers worldwide. We're unpacking one of the most frustrating and fixable gaps in the profession. What do you do when a well meaning but uninformed CEO wants $100,000 a year with no plan, no support, and no clue how fundraising works? Let's get into it. Welcome, Art.
Thank you, Rochelle. It's great to be on the show. And I was listening to you describe me as the president of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. And I was saying, who? Because I've been doing something else for the last 23 years. And to hear myself described with that title is still kind of fresh, but exciting at the same time. And it's great to
Yes.
be in this role at this time.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. And because you have been in this industry for a very long time, you are a perfect person to discuss this topic with me today. And our topic, $100,000 in 12 months, the gap between leadership and the fundraising reality with H. Art Taylor, President and CEO of AFP Global. So you had a bird's eye view of this profession for years. How common is this disconnect between CEOs and their development teams?
Too common. And it's burning fundraisers out. It's frustrating boards, and it's getting CEOs fired because no one, not enough people really understand, at least in my opinion, what fundraisers do and how they go about it. What most people, I think, these days want to try is, we need money. Let's go hire a fundraiser. And now all of our problems are solved. And if we just hire the fundraiser, then the money that we want to raise, we'll be able to raise and we'll be good to go. The reality is fundraising is a process of building relationships and building trust with potential donors so that over time you can have a consistent way of meeting your fundraising goals. It is not this emergency panacea for an organization that's struggling financially. And so, many times organizations don't even have fundraisers. They'll hire an executive director and tell that person to go out and raise funds while they're trying to manage the organization. Well, if they're not trained as fundraisers, they may have some success, as most people will have some success. But to have the kind of success that most organizations are looking for and not be trained as a fundraiser is a big red flag when you're in an organization or joining a board. I could also talk about boards. Boards have boards are very undereducated too when it comes to understanding the fundraising process and how to evaluate fundraising performance. So, if you're on a board, the only metric you're generally given is how much money came in the door since we last met. Yeah, that's a lagging indicator, and it could show good progress, but you could be doing everything wrong with your fundraising program. You just got lucky. Somebody gave you some money that quarter, and now it looks like you're doing well. But if you're not evaluating the metrics of what a fundraising process does, then you have no clue as to whether your fundraising program is on track. And so what happens is, fundraisers come out, they're trained, they go out and start implementing things to build a fundraising program inside of an organization. And then lo and behold, the money isn't coming in the minute after they do that. And the board is like, well, you've been on board now for 6 months and we haven't met our goal yet. What's going on? It's because you haven't been watching and paying attention to how they go about their craft. And so we have a big disconnect, Rochelle. Boards are under informed of what fundraisers do. Executive directors are in the middle, kind of helping their fundraiser to some extent, give them time to get things off the ground. But after a while, they begin to turn on the fundraiser too because they're feeling the pressure. And you just got a continuous cycle of no production. And the reality is that it takes time to build the kind of relationships that you need to in order to have a consistent fundraising program.
Yeah, that's correct, Art. And from AFP's perspective, where do you think the root of the fundraising literacy gap lies? Is it education? Is it hiring? Is it the culture?
It's all of that because, boards are told that they are the fiduciaries responsible for bringing the money in. And like on any board, you're going to have some people who are really focused on doing that themselves. They may have contacts and relationships that they've built over time. Some of them may even have the resources, right, to help the organization. But that is also a challenge because if you have board members with great contacts, they're not going to be on a board forever. You still need an internal mechanism to make sure that the organization's funds are raised consistently over time. Now, um, so we have a gap there. We also have a gap to some extent where fundraisers or people who claim to be fundraisers aren't really trained well. And maybe they came into the profession to do a certain thing and they had some success and now they believe they're fundraisers. But it's important to actually understand the science so that you can also deploy the art of fundraising. And it's both. It's a science, there are techniques and strategies that you can employ that will that have been proven to work over time. And then there's the art of relationship building that goes along with those techniques. And I'm talking about things like prospecting and understanding where your contacts and your prospects are along the curve of interest and knowledge of your organization, all the way through to ownership and willingness to own the organization. We've got to be able to bring these prospects along that curve so that over time they are not only giving to you once, but they're giving to you consistently. And that's
Yeah.
the thing. These are not transactional relationships that you're trying to build, where you say, okay, I need you to give me $10. Thank you very much. Goodbye. What you're trying to do is get the person to love the mission of the organization so that in many cases you don't even have to ask. All you're basically doing at that point is thanking people and sharing the progress the organization is making so that those gifts can come in on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly. And the podcast is Fundraising Confessions, the truth behind the profession. So if we could speak directly to CEOs who aren't fundraisers, what's one thing they absolutely need to understand before setting fundraising goals?
Well, first of all, you need to understand that whatever goal you set, you need to make sure you have the capacity internally to achieve it. And, good fundraisers know that before we set a goal, we need to do some kind of feasibility study. It doesn't have to be an expensive thing, but you need to look at, okay, who are the people that are likely to support us? How much are they likely to give? And over what time frame can we expect these to be multi-year gifts? And then you got to look at, well, what kind of capacity? What is it going to take us internally to actually reach these people and get them to give? And and then to make sure you have the budget to take care of those folks so that they can do the work for you. All of that has to be in place before you set any kind of goal. Now, a lot of times we want to say, well, this is what we need. I understand that. What you need is one thing, but what you're capable of is going to be largely dependent on what kind of feasibility you've established for your organization.
Absolutely. And how do we move away from the unrealistic expectations and toward a culture of fundraising partnership between leadership and the development team?
Well, the first thing I would do if I was the CEO is I would establish a training program for my board. And again, this is going to be uneven information that board members have about fundraising, but it's really important that board members understand what they're up against, what the organization's up against when it comes to fundraising. And if you can get them to go through that training with you, and this sounds really like impossible. What I'm saying sounds impossible to some people, right? But you're going to be so far ahead of the game if you can get your board members to agree to go through that training, because now they're going to be in it with you to understand what needs to happen and not pressuring you every time you have a board meeting about where we are from a fundraising standpoint. You're going to be able to share with them the right kind of metrics so they can keep tabs on what's going. They'll know how to plug in so that they can participate in the fundraising process in an appropriate way, and your fundraisers can do the job with joy. Because the worst thing you in the world is to have a fundraiser go out stressed out, meeting with a prospective donor, and the donor can smell the desperation. The donor can smell the desperation. And what might turn out to be a big gift is a thank you. Here's a little something. Now go away and we'll see you another time. And you see this happening again and again and again. And fundraisers at that point, when they start to feel that stress, they're not feeling the job is joyful. They're done. And most fundraisers are extroverts. They're people who love being in relationships, establishing relationships with people. They are happy people for the most part, excited about the work, excited about the mission, and we can really hurt them and their ability to prosper when we put this extraordinary pressure on them that's unfounded. They know it's unfounded. They're going to leave. They're going to get. And by the way, here's the other thing, Rochelle. As you know,
Yeah,
fundraisers have the pick of the litter because there are not enough of us.
that's right.
They're not enough. We're
Yes.
way under. There's not enough fundraisers in the nonprofit sector, and you can go to almost any organization, large or small, and they'll tell you we can't find good fundraisers.
Yeah.
So they can leave, and if you leave, you're basically starting all over again. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and when we're looking at the profession, I mean, I see it every day in my role as a practitioner of the profession. I have a heart for helping people the right way, and I call myself a professional mission driver. I want to ensure that the people, the right people at the right time, support the mission that they are passionate about. So when we think about the board and the executive search committees, who play a role in ensuring that CEOs come into the job with at least a foundational understanding of fundraising. How can AFP, who, sees more fundraisers, who are setting the boundaries and the goals and, making it happen out here, in the nonprofit industry, how do we make that a reality? That everyone understands the fundraising journey.
it's a challenge, but it's doable. Um, because you don't actually need. I was just talking to someone on our team today who's been doing fundraising for the last 30 years of her life. And she said, I don't have a 4 year degree. And I started out with very little training, but then I went to AFP Academy, is what she called it. She became a member of AFP, and she was able to learn through our
Yeah,
various courses and classes and trainings and mentoring what she needed to know to be a great fundraiser.
yeah,
She was able to reach to other people who had done things that she was learning how to do, who gave her advice and counsel. And as a result, she became a successful fundraiser over a 30-year career. And what I'm saying to young people today, a lot of times they want to start nonprofit organizations. Okay, that's fun. But how are you going to keep it going? Even if you're trying to start an organization, the first thing you need to do is bring in the money.
that's
And I
right.
would say to them, let's start by being a fundraiser, become a member of AFP, learn the craft. You don't even have to have a 4 year degree. If you're not trying to start an organization, join AFP, learn the craft. And to really expand this, Rochelle, we're going to need a massive effort. You'll hear me talking about this in the
Hmm.
coming months, but we're going to need a massive effort to bring in, I won't give a number right now, but many, many more fundraisers into the profession. And we're going to need some money by bringing together people across the fundraising ecosystem, whether that be crowdfunding sites, former fundraisers who've done well, consultants like yourself, um, foundations, nonprofit organizations, colleges and universities, hospitals, people who collect data, organizations like Giving Tuesday that gathers a ton of data, institutions like the Lilly School of Philanthropy, um, organizations that provide platforms for fundraisers like um, uh, Blackbaud and others, these fundraising databases that
Hmm.
help fundraisers. All of us are going to have to come together and figure this out because it's critical, really, to the future of what nonprofits are able to do, which is also critical to the future of our civil society.
I totally agree. When you think about bridging the gap. I also look at what we see digitally across platforms like podcasts, where you see all the sponsors, and you can't watch anything digitally without a sponsor commercial, right? So, who's educating all of the new entertainers and creators on how to leverage relationships and prospecting?
Yep. And that's it. I mean, as I think I told you, I did a podcast for many years and I learned on the fly. I could teach people how to do podcasts now. I did so many of them. But the great news is that the tools and the technology to do these things are robust
Yeah,
and they're going to get better. They're going to get better. I mean, AI is a powerful technology or powerful group of technologies, really, that will be able to do so much to help us identify specific needs and deliver solutions to people who have those needs. It's a
yeah,
great tool for matching needs with opportunity, and
absolutely.
we are going to be able to really deploy that in the work to grow the fundraising base.
Yeah, for sure. And so when we think about, working in silos, right? Like, how do we de-silo fundraising from the rest of the organization so it's not seen as a fundraiser's job? I know in my career, a lot of times I have had to rally everyone and say, this is so we all understand the fundraising journey, so we all understand the relationships that are being created,
Hmm.
so that no matter what your role is in the organization, we are all speaking the same voice and the same understanding when it comes to supporting our operations and programmatic initiatives. So how do we de-silo fundraising from the rest of the organization?
Yeah, a lot of times you see the organization, and then let's put fundraising over here on the side. And some organizations even have a separate organization that does the fundraising while they have the organization just benefiting from what's raised to do the work. And it's really odd, but um, it's hard because um, some people believe that fundraisers are good at that, but they don't really understand the mission or the work. And that's also a mistake. And the truth is, it doesn't matter that they understand the work because they are the people who will be representing you to the public about the work. So by not including them in strategy discussions, hurt your organization in two ways. First, the fundraiser never gets to appropriately understand how to make a case for funding, which is obviously key. But secondly, the fundraiser can't help the organization shape its programs in a way that they will be appealing to donors because they're out there talking to these folk about where their um, where their hopes and aspirations are from a philanthropic standpoint, the kind of changes that they want to see in society through organizations like the ones that they're being appealed to support. That's great information for a team to know about as they begin shaping their strategies and building their programs. So you're missing out on that if you don't take advantage of it. So how do you make it happen? Well, it takes a CEO first of all who understands that the function of a manager includes coordinating and collaborating.
Hmm.
If you go back to the functions of a manager established by Henri Fayol back in the late 1800s, it included things like planning, organizing, controlling, collaborating, and convening different groups so that coordinating so that the organization could understand what each division was doing so that it could have better synergies and better success. So if you're not bringing the fundraiser to the table. You're actually missing out on a big part of what a leader's responsibilities are, and that is the coordinating function.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and so we've discussed, bridging the gap. So now that we are looking ahead, right, to the future of fundraising and what this means as we move through this digital era, as AI is growing. And I think they say AI grows, what, every 3 months, right? So,
Absolutely.
so with tech and AI changing the game of how we have been working our craft, how do we balance innovation with the very human part of donor relationships, and how can CEOs support that?
Well, so I'm a part time, I would say, futurist. I wouldn't say I'm full time. I serve on the board of an organization called the Institute for the Future, which has been doing forecasting for the last 50 years in various industries. And I follow the work of this organization very closely and consider their forecasts in everything that I do. And so, one of the things they talk about is how AI will be used to enhance us as humans, not replace us, but enhance us. And so, the first thing I believe every CEO should understand is how to enhance the capability of their employees to do their jobs and do their jobs more efficiently and more effectively, not replace them. Um, and it's important to make that distinction between enhancing and replacing, because if people believe that you're going to replace them with this technology, you're not going to get anything off the ground. You're not going to be able to use it in a way that really benefits your organization. But if you are going to allow it to augment what an employee can do, then you start your programs by asking those employees, how can we make your job more effective? What can we do to support you in your role that this technology might be able to help you with? And then you begin to design programs or develop AI projects that do that. So there are so many opportunities. AI, as I mentioned, is a great way to match um, opportunities, right? So if you're, for instance, trying to find organizations that might fund you, then AI is a great way to begin looking through the various organizations to determine which ones might best align with what you're trying to do. It can be very helpful in drafting initial proposals that you might want to send out, not replacing people, because in the end, you still have to have relationships. You still have to get out there and meet people and have them trust you so that they feel you're going to do what you say you're going to do if that funding comes in. So we're creating more ways for people to spend less time drafting and searching for things and more time meeting and convening and connecting with people. I see
Mhm.
that as a major lift in fundraising. There's also some real possibilities as we go forward to have funders, major foundations, for instance, make people aware of the kinds of programs that they want to fund. If we could get all of that somewhere and then have people in AFP fundraisers who are looking to find places to get support, what they can do is take their programs and see how they align with what these foundations are doing and get scores for how their programs
Mhm.
align with different foundations, and then take the higher priority ones and begin to go after them. The foundations can, on the other hand, find new grantees by getting scores for which programs seem to line best with what they want to fund. So we can do so many things. We can, I like to use, I hate to use this word publicly, but I kind of use it behind the scenes. The fundraising, the fundraising marketplace is constipated.
Mhm.
because there's a limit right now to what foundations can do to
Yeah.
bring in new grantees, right? There's only so many people they have working. There's only so many proposals they can read. So they put up artificial barriers by saying, well, in order to submit a proposal to us, you have to get invited. We have to invite you. Well, how are you going to get invited? You don't know anybody. How are you
Yeah.
going to get invited? Well, what they can do now is have the AIs at least pre-screen any number of proposals and then get people involved to determine which ones are worth talking to a human being about. So we can do this with this technology. You have to train the AIs well enough so that they're not exercising any unnecessary bias, in that they are looking at organizations in a holistic way. But that can be done, and once it is done, then I think we can have a better flowing, free flowing marketplace where funders and donors can connect more seamlessly.
Yeah. I like that. I completely agree with
I said
understanding
funders and donors. What I really meant was funders and grant seekers can
grant
collect more.
seekers. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and everyone understanding what tech and AI can do to help enhance our missions, right? And so,
Mhm.
what gives you hope, Art, about the future of the profession?
Well, the it's at a critical moment right now, and as I said in the beginning, the profession has to continue to evolve as our sector evolves, as our society evolves. We have to continue to um, grab on to new tools, new ways of doing the work. We have to, at some point, maybe even decide what is a what is a tax exempt organization. There's challenges right now on what we mean by tax exemption and whether it will even matter. One thing I do know, that people are, I think, by nature generous. We're just going to have to continue to make the case that institutions are the things that they should be investing in. And, Rochelle, so often I hear people say, I don't support this organization, or I'm not supporting the nonprofit sector. I don't want to give any money because I don't know where it's going. But just giving money to people, while it's a great thing, because if you see somebody in need and you want to support them, that's a wonderful thing to do. On the other hand, though, if you're trying to do something at a scale, it takes an institution. It takes bringing people together inside of a organization so problems can be solved at a scale that really matters to more people. And I think we've got to make sure we're doing both. So while institutions may have their challenges, we can't really function as a society without institutions. We hear so much of news, though, about what's going on inside institutions that we think somehow they're different than what they used to be. But the truth is, um, I can look at organizations 30 years ago when we didn't have social media and all these different ways of knowing. And I know that there are things that existed that weren't great in them then, but people didn't know it. And some of the same things are there today that we do know. And all of a sudden we're saying they're worse than they used to be. No, they're not. They're the same. They're the same. It's just that we know more. And that doesn't give the organization a pass. We got
Mm.
to fix those things. But I'm not giving the public a pass either when you say you don't trust institutions, because they're they're people inside of them, and they're going to be imperfect. But let's look at what they are capable of doing as well. And the institutional leaders have to be willing to make the changes to improve those institutions so that real work and change can occur.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have the capacity internally, look for consultants. I often wonder why grant seekers have not utilized consultants more to help with the feasibility of organizations. Because one of the things we know as fundraisers is that not everyone is fundraising ready.
That's right.
right? And so, how do you get the organizations to a point where they can work and establish that capacity, right? Where they can actually execute the work that they're trying to distribute in that grant application, right? And that their programs where they talk about the impact of the community and help them collaborate with other organizations so they can create those bold, systematic barrier programs that will help the community. And that's what we need right now. We need courage, we need partnerships, and we need people to understand that fundraising journey, right? And grant seekers can use consultants to help organizations get there.
For sure. I'm on the board of an organization now where I'm the chair of the development committee. And we were an organization that was fortunate to have had a board chair that was amazing in bringing in resources. He had contacts with many, many wealthy people. And we didn't even need, at the time, I wasn't on the board then, but we didn't even have a real fundraising function. This person was so strong. He had so many great relationships. He would just go out and say, I need you to give me 100,000, 100,000. And then we had one major donor that was given in the multi millions. And so the organization was set. What,
Mhm.
guess what happened? That person stepped off the board, said, I'm retiring. You guys got to make it on your own now. And where did those donors go? Right? They left because we didn't have the backup in terms of relationships. And that's why you need a fundraising team. So we don't have a fundraising team right now. We're struggling to find people. And so what do? We hired a consultant. And the consultant, use the term bridge, is bridging our pathway to getting a functioning development team going inside of the organization. They're doing the feasibility work, they're doing some donor outreach, they're doing some studies for us, they're helping us identify people. So they're helping us build the team that we need. And we're giving our organization, we're fortunate that we have enough reserves to do this. We're giving our organization the room to build a team over time where there isn't this immediate pressure to raise it today. Now we're going to raise some money, but we're not going to raise anywhere near what we're going to once we get this team in place over time. And so that's the other thing I want to say, don't wait. Don't wait. Do it while you have some reserves. The temptation is always to say, well, it's been working for now, but when that board member leaves, you better get on this right now. You can't wait. You got to get the consultant in, begin building what you need to do internally so that over time, you may not need the consultant anymore. You have your own team ready to go. The other great thing about a consultant is that they've worked with many different organizations. And so they can definitely pull out a playbook for an organization at your place where your stage is. You'd be surprised how similar these organizations can be. And your consultant, having seen all types of organizations at different phases of their development, can pull out your playbook and help you do what you need to do in a very customized way. So I just wanted to add that too, Rochelle.
Absolutely, Art. And I appreciate that comment because I recently conducted a good governance webinar this week about sustaining funding because of your governance structure. And for someone like me who's worked for several large associations and understands the governance structure and what that means to sustaining your funding and how that strategically works in your fundraising strategy is critical. So I appreciate that there. So, actionable takeaways from our conversation today, Art. I know we're talking about, onboarding CEOs as well as other key stakeholders and understanding fundraising literacy. AFP offers training and crash courses. They offer a variety of courses wherever you are in your fundraising literacy. So we encourage that as a resource for you. Set goals between the CEO and the fundraising staff. Fundraising isn't magic, it's strategy.
Hmm.
Align leadership vision with actual bandwidth, staff capacity, and donor trends, right? Donors, fundraising, is strategic. It's data driven. It's community centric. Embed fundraising in the organizational culture. Encourage CEOs to show up at the donor events, tell stories on social media, communicate your impact, includes fundraising wins and staff meetings. Mention AFP's, tools and ethic guidelines and our DEI framework, all of the conferences to your staff to help them understand what we're dealing with in an industry of fundraising.
Yeah.
Um, and do you want to add anything to our
I would
takeaway?
just say if you want to get a glimpse of what your organization's culture is, judge it based on the mood of your fundraiser. If your fundraiser is approaching their job with joy, then you probably have a joyful organization. If they're stressed out and feeling that the world is about to end, if they're pressuring you internally, then believe it, your organization has a bit of a culture problem.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it means that you may not be extending either that fundraiser the graciousness that they need to do their work, or
Yeah.
you may have made some goal decisions that are just unrealistic. In
Yeah.
either event, um, judge your there's some clear indications to read based on how joyful your fundraiser approaches their work.
Yes, I agree. Well, that's a confession in the books for Fundraising Confessions. A big thank you to our guest for keeping it real and honest with us today. And we thank you for listening, courtesy of Jerry Consulting Group, Rochelle Jerry, Fundraising Confessions.
Well,
Thank you.
wait. Congratulations to you. This is, from what I understand, this is the first show, right?
Yes.
So, congratulations. You got to celebrate, that's another thing. Fundraisers like to celebrate when we hit a goal. Come on. We have to celebrate you and congratulate you for getting this off the ground. This is a milestone for you, Rochelle. And I
Thank
just
you.
want to congratulate you and show you the love that you deserve for doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. I'm looking forward to helping and supporting fundraisers and non fundraisers along this journey.
Great.
Ooh, that was a great interview. Thank you, Art Taylor, for joining us for our very first podcast interview Fundraising Confessions, the truth behind the profession. We appreciate you and your leadership and the AFP community for providing a space for ethical fundraisers to exist. If you laughed, if you heard something new, exciting, share it and come visit us again for our next intriguing interview. You can find us right here on YouTube, so like and subscribe. And you can also find us on all the other social platforms at Jerry Consulting Group. We thank you. We appreciate you. And don't forget, every story has a strategy. So head to the notes for some practical takeaways that can help you on your fundraising journey. I'm your host, Rochelle Jerry.